The interview plays a vital role in any job selection process. For that reason, preparation is key. Technical questions are part of the interview process which impact more in the interview. Hey everyone, I welcome you all to this session. In this session, we will see ASP.NET interview questions with answers. If you're planning to start your career as a developer, you have to possess some development skills that empower your ability to crack the interview. If you want to make a career in software development and improve your chances, then this video on ASP.NET interview questions and answers will help you make your preparation easy. But before we begin, make sure you have subscribed to our YouTube channel and clicked on the bell icon, so you never miss an update from Simplilearn. So without wasting any further time, let's get started. We will look at the first category of ASP.NET interview questions, that is beginner level interview questions. What is ASP.NET? ASP.NET is a server-side technology used for developing dynamic websites and web applications on the internet. It also produces data-driven web applications. Microsoft released ASP.NET in 2002 to build dynamic websites and web applications using the .NET framework. What platform does ASP.NET use? ASP.NET is a cross-platform which works on the .NET framework and runs on Linux, Windows, macOS, and Docker. What is the ASP.NET lifecycle, and list the types of lifecycle? When ASP.NET pages run, it goes through several steps of the lifecycle, which performs a series of actions like initialization, running, restoring, and rendering. Lifecycle is classified into two categories: application lifecycle and page lifecycle. In application lifecycle, the user requests for accessing the application. Page lifecycle has phases like initialization, restoring, execution, and page rendering. What is MVC? So MVC is basically a software architectural pattern that divides an application into three main parts, that is model, view, and controller. Model helps to create the data domain of the application and represents the public properties and business logic of the application. View represents the data tables, charts, and diagrams by collecting the data from the model. Controller. The controller helps in handling the user interactions and controls the flow of the application. List the languages used for ASP.NET. ASP.NET uses object-oriented programming languages that provide a framework and patterns which are easy to use. Languages used by ASP.NET framework are C# or VB.NET. C# is a programming language developed by Microsoft that runs on the .NET framework. It is used for developing web applications on the .NET framework. VB.NET is a modern object-oriented programming language developed by Microsoft to combine the features of CLR and .NET. What type of library is used in ASP.NET? A library is a pre-coded object-oriented programming template collection used to develop web-based and desktop applications in ASP.NET. ASP.NET uses a web library to develop web applications. What is CLR? CLR is the basic common language runtime virtual machine component of the .NET framework used to run the code. It manages the executing .NET programs and implements a virtual execution system internally. Services that CLR provide are verification, garbage collection, security, and memory management. What is IIS and why do you use it? Internet Information Server (IIS) is the most popular web server used to host and provide internet-based services to ASP.NET and ASP web applications. IIS has its own process engine to handle the request. Using an IIS computer, one can work as a web server and provides functionality to deploy ASP.NET web applications. It is also responsible for providing responses to the requests made by the users. List the types of application lifecycle. Application lifecycle is of 5 types: application start, object creation, HTTP application, dispose, and application end. Application start is a method that you execute when a user makes a request. Object creation contains all the information about current request and browsing information. HTTP application processes all subsequent requests sent to the application. Dispose is responsible for releasing manually unwanted resources. Application end helps to unload the memory of an application. List the advantages of using ASP.NET. ASP.NET is a development framework that is used for developing web applications. It is one of the most preferred web development technologies at present. There are a lot of benefits of using ASP.NET. Here are some of its advantages. Applications created using ASP.NET show better performance. ASP.NET provides multi-development modes for the applications. Applications created using ASP.NET can be used across the globe. ASP.NET is a language independent. What is an active server page? Active server page is an HTML page used to develop dynamic web pages. It includes one or more scripts on the Microsoft web server before sending the request to the user. ASP was first released in December 1996. It is used to generate the content that is sent to the client web browser via the HTTP response. Describe web forms. Web forms are web pages that a user requests using a browser. It is built using ASP.NET technology. It executes on the server and generates output to the browser. It also allows you to add and create custom controls. Some of the custom controls provided by ASP.NET are label, text box, button, hyperlink, and image button. What is a Solution Explorer? Solution Explorer displays the folder and files of a project that appears on a physical hard drive. List the components of ASP.NET. ASP.NET provides data-driven web applications on the internet using various components. Some of the components are Common Language Runtime, Language, Library, Common Type System, and Windows Forms. What is the difference between ASP and ASP.NET? ASP is the first server-side scripting language developed by Microsoft to design dynamic web forms, whereas ASP.NET is a server-side technology used for developing dynamic websites and web applications on the internet. ASP uses ADO, that is ActiveX Data Objects, to connect with the database, whereas ASP.NET uses ADO.NET to connect with the database. ASP is written in VB script. ASP.NET is written in C#. What type of protocol is used to call web service? Web service is a web-based functionality accessed by using protocols. It uses XML to exchange the software using common internet protocols. Web service in ASP.NET has 3 aspects. They are creating web service, creating a proxy, consuming the web service. The HTTP protocol is used in ASP.NET to call a web service. Explain uses of global.asax. Global file is used to execute the application level events and set application level variables. Global.asax is used to handle high-level applications like application start, session end, and session start. Now let us look at some of the intermediate level ASP.NET interview questions and answers. What is a web library? Web library is a part of a website that accesses all libraries from the browser and helps in adding collections online. It contains base and user-defined data types. It supports to create web services. Describe a view state. View state is a page-level state management technique that is used to preserve the values of the page and controls. View state contains the sections like features, background, scenario, and class reference. What is a multi-view? Multi-view is a parent control for the view. It is used to control all types of the view. Multi-view has the prefix MV. This is the syntax of multi-view. What is early binding? Early binding is used to check the methods and properties during compilation. It is fast and easy to code and also reduces the compilation time. It also reduces the time by identifying the errors. What is late binding? Late binding takes more time to compile. It is hard to find out the object through late binding. Late binding has dynamic objects and is achieved by virtual machines. How ASP.NET is different from ASP.NET Core? ASP.NET is used to build applications for Windows, whereas ASP.NET Core is used for Windows, macOS, and Linux. ASP.NET uses .NET Framework, whereas ASP.NET Core uses .NET Core Framework. ASP.NET is a single version. ASP.NET Core has multiple versions. What is caching? Caching is a technique used to sort the user data or information in memory. It boosts the performance of the applications and creates pages automatically. Caching is also essential for data-related transactions. What is the role of page directives? Page directives describe the attributes of specific page file for the compiler. Below is the syntax of page directives, where code file specifies the name of code behind the file, and debug enables or specifies compilation debug, and client name specifies the class name of the page, and the client target browsers the server controls. List the types of states in ASP.NET. State in ASP.NET is used to store the information between request and to retrieve it when required and holding the information. ASP.NET provides 4 types of states: application state, cookie state, view state, and session state. Application state. In this state, all collections of web pages and files in a single directory on a web server. Cookie state. It stores the information on the client machine. View state states the state of web pages and its control. Session state. This state is used to sort the application data. List the sources of data allowed by ASP.NET. Data sources are responsible for operations like insertion, deletion, sorting, and updates. Some of the data sources allowed by ASP.NET are SQL data source, object data source, and access data source. List the events of calendar control. Calendar control is a function used to provide a calendar on a web page. It also enables you to change and move to the previous months and years. The events of calendar control are of 3 types: selection changed, day render, and visible month changed. What is a trace? Tracing enables view diagnostic information about a single request at runtime and debug the application. The trace contains features, backgrounds, code examples, and class references. How can we add a style sheet in Visual Studio? To add a style sheet, open Solution Explorer and right-click on the option, then click on New, and a pop-up will appear to choose. How can a page layout help in ASP.NET? Page layout provides an overall container for the pages on the website. For example, navigation area and footer. Page layout also includes the main event. List the advantages of using HTML server controls. HTML server controls are the standard HTML controls used to enable server-side processing. Some of the advantages of using HTML server controls are: HTML server control does not possess any mechanism to identify the capabilities of a client browser. Coding can be easy by adding run@=server attribute. Controls can interact with the client-side scripting. Explain about event bubbling. Event bubbling is used by data-bound controls. When a parent control contains child controls, and when an event occurs in the child controls, it bubbles the event to the parent. This is called event bubbling. Event bubbling is classified into two categories: on-bubble event that handles the event data, rise bubble event that sends the event data. List the most common built-in objects of ASP.NET. Built-in objects access the information from the web server. It is also responsible for recognizing the client who is accessing the web page. Some of the commonly built-in objects of ASP.NET are context, application, request, server, trace, and response. List types of caching. Caching is a technique used to sort the user data or information in memory. Caching is divided into three types. Output caching, it specifies the duration of cache and the attribute. Fragment caching, it is user control caching used in a basic web form page. Data caching, it is used for caching the data of the data source controls. What are breakpoints? Breakpoint helps to specify the runtime to run a line and stop the execution. It is used to examine and perform various debugging functions and methods. Now let us look at some of the advanced level interview questions. List any 5 web controls in ASP.NET. Web controls are HTML elements used for script tagging and functionality for web forms and pages. The 5 web controls in ASP.NET are as follows: HTML controls, HTML server controls, user and custom controls, ASP.NET server controls, ASP.NET AJAX server controls. What are button controls? Button controls in ASP.NET are used to display a push button on a web page. This is the syntax for button controls, where you provide button ID and run@server, and the text is of the type button. What is range validator and its syntax? Range validator checks the input values that lie in between the specified ranges. Range validator has 3 main properties, that is type, minimum value, and maximum value. This is the syntax of range validator, wherein we have provided minimum value as 1 and maximum value as 6, and it is of the type integer. What is a thread priority? In multithreading, each thread has its own priority that gains access to CPU resources. Whenever a thread is created in C#, it always possesses some priority. It is mainly used to set a value. What is the role of postback in ASP.NET? Postback is a request sent from a client to the server from the page on which the user is working. It posts the complete page back to the server for a new page. Postback is submitted to a server before processing the page and holds credentials such as verification like username and password using a database. List the types of authentication in ASP.NET. Authentication is a process of ensuring the user identity. It is divided into 4 types: form authentication, Windows authentication, custom authentication, and passport authentication. Define web configuration. Web configuration is used to describe the property and behavior of web applications. It also helps to manage settings. Each file of a web configuration is an XML file that contains a set of configuration elements. Explain client-side script events. Client-side script runs on the browser and speeds up the execution of the page. Some of the client-side events are as follows. On click, it is used when the control is clicked. On focus, it is used when control receives the focus. On change is used when the value of control is changed. On blur is used when the control loses focus. On key press is used when the user presses the key. What is anonymous personalization? Anonymous personalization helps and allows the user to personalize the site before identifying themselves. For example, enable anonymous identification by passing the value true. Provide the cookie name, cookie timeout and cookie path. And set cookie sliding expiration as true. And keep the cookie protection encrypted and cookieless is equal to user. What is form-based authentication? Form-based authentication is used to edit the web configuration files and add a login page to authenticate. It is used for web applications. Form-based authentication also provides a way to handle authentication using custom logics in ASP.NET applications. Define the types of configuration files. Configuration files help to manage the settings of a website. Settings of configuration files are stored as XML files which are separate from the application. Configuration files are of two types: web configuration and machine configuration. Web configuration contains the machine-specific value for all settings of the applications. Machine configurations help to extend, restrict, and override the settings. List the different types of cookies used in ASP.NET. Cookies are a small piece of information stored at the client side. The cookies in ASP.NET are provided into two types: session cookie, valid for a single session; persistent cookie, valid for multiple sessions. Explain the difference between custom controls and user controls. Custom controls is designed for a single application, whereas user control is designed for multiple applications. Custom control is loosely coupled. User control is tightly coupled. User interface can be changed in custom control, whereas in user controls, the user interface is fixed. Explain the difference between web configuration and machine configuration files. Web configuration is automatically created when an application is created, whereas machine configuration is automatically installed with the Visual Studio. In web configuration, file inherits settings from the machine configuration, whereas in machine configuration, only one machine configuration exists. So with that, we have reached the end of this video. Like and share it if you found it interesting. Thank you for being here, keep learning and stay tuned to Simplilearn.
Hi there, if you like this video, subscribe to the Simplilearn YouTube channel and click here to watch similar videos. To nerd up and get certified, click here.